Welcome back to Keeping It Fresh with the 2025 March Madness tournament just a couple hours away from now, just getting that underway. I figured it'd be a perfect opportunity to have someone who has experience on the dance floor for Michigan State. He won a couple Big Ten regular season titles, a Big Ten tournament title. It was a captain and a pivotal factor in the Spartans' run to the Final Four in the 2018-19 season. From Huntsville, Alabama, number one, Josh Langford. Yep. So, Joshua, thank you so much for being here, especially with March Madness just one day away, along with your alma mater, Michigan State, getting ready for yet another run. But we'll get to that team in a little bit. But first off, tell me about growing up in Alabama and your recovery from a scary medical scare when you were 12 years old.
Um, yeah, man. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be on here with you. I appreciate it. It's always good to be able to have the chance to talk about Spartans, my life, and um, just be able to talk. I love talking. I was just telling my wife yesterday. I like podcast or like interview podcasts. Like feels better than keynote speaking. I don't know why, but I just like being asked questions and then talking. Um, but yeah, man. So when I was 12 years old, I was diagnosed with bacterial meningitis, and the interesting thing about that is my I have a cousin who I never met. Um, his name was LeByron, and him and my dad were really close. They ended up going to Motlow State together, which is a JUCO in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. And he ended up getting meningitis um, while he was while him and my dad were in college, and he ended up passing away from meningitis. And I think he was around maybe, I think he was 19, um, 19 or 20, somewhere in there. But so when I got bacterial meningitis, uh, that was just kind of like, whoa, because it had already, it's a very, I mean, it's heard about, but it would just be, it's really odd that it came around like that. But a part of the reason why, I think I was able to get ahead of it was because my great aunt, my grandmother, and then another great aunt, um, they were just like, man, you should check him for meningitis. Should They were asking the doctors to check me for that because um, they had already seen it before in the family. So I ended up getting checked for it. Ended up having bacterial meningitis, and man, that was like very challenging for me. Um, I was in the hospital for probably about a week, but before that, I was wrestling with sickness, and I didn't really know what was going on. I had fevers, and it was hard for me to sleep. I had real bad headaches, um, and I remember specifically asking my mom, was I going to die? At this time, it was just my mom, my sister, and I going through this process because my father had deployed to Iraq for as a civilian, as like a government worker. He was just trying to. It was a good opportunity for our family, so he took the opportunity. So he deployed to Iraq for 6 months, and so I only got to talk to my dad one time. I think it was one time, maybe twice throughout that whole process, and it was really scary. And so I remember asking my mom, like, "Mom, am I going to die?" I just didn't. Um, I didn't know whether I was going to live or die because it was just that severe. I mean, like my migraines were so bad that the only way that I could get any kind of peace was if my mom like constantly um, by the hour just massaged my head, you know. And then eventually the medicine helped some, but I was just in a lot of pain. I don't wish that on anybody because it was almost like just so many ways. It was like this perpetual state of just torture and discomfort. And I remember asking my mom, was I going to die? And I just really felt like Jesus spoke to my heart and he told me that I wasn't, that he had more for my life um, and that I would overcome this. And that was one of the first times in my life where I felt like I had encountered God's voice in a very personal way. because this situation was very severe for me up until this point. I had never experienced any kind of sickness to this degree, um, and so man, it was very challenging. But um, I ended up being able to come out and be able to tell the story.
First off, Josh, I'm so sorry about your cousin who passed away at the age of 19 or 20. I commend your father for going overseas to Iraq. That shows tremendous bravery. Um, and I am definitely thankful and that that you got out of it because that is just I cannot even imagine not even anybody at any age going through what you did. And I just uh I'm happy that your sister and your mom are right there beside you the entire time and just thankful that you're here today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah. And
Thanks.
so after you recovered, you went on to dominate in basketball, winning two Alabama Gatorade Player of the Years, winning two state titles, which led you to receiving offers from Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, Arizona, and that school in Ann Arbor. Um, but you declined all of them for Michigan State. Why did you choose East Lansing over all those programs?
Man, two reasons. So, and I'll tell this story too. So when I only took one official visit, and that was to Michigan State. So at that time, I don't know what the rules are now. Um, I'm sure they've changed, but at that time, you could only take five official visits. So I only took one official visit that was to Michigan State. When I took that official visit, it was like so. This was the weekend I think that we had like an alumni weekend, and alumni weekend. If you haven't heard anything about it or people don't know about it, it's just like basically a time where um, the basketball program invites anybody that has been a part of the history of as anybody has been a part of the basketball program at Michigan State, even if they didn't get coached by him, like you're welcomed. And um, and that's one beautiful thing about being at State is that there's so much history that I believe Coach is and the athletic department they just do a good job of trying to keep that history um, as almost like a living organism in front of people, letting them know like this is the roots of Michigan State. But nevertheless, so I went to took an unofficial official visit, and it was alumni weekend. We were playing Oregon in football, if I'm not mistaken. And man, I went into the practice gym, and like it was just electrifying. Just seeing all of the alumni there, get into the chat with Mateen Cleaves and Travis Walton and man, like so many people. Denzel Valentine, I think it was his senior year that year. So Brian Forbes, like all of these guys that were currently playing or that had played were there, and they were just so welcoming, and it was just like they were like a family, man. It was just amazing to see, just to be able to be a part of something like that, to see that at my age, because I come from my family is a very close knit family, so my roots, if you look at my roots, you'll see the word family. It's just that's a part of how we're wired, and so being able to come into Michigan State on that official visit and see the same thing that I was so familiar with growing up as a child, it was like a no-brainer. And that was another time in my life where I really felt like just the Lord was saying, "Hey, man, this is where I want you to be," and He did it by way of just speaking to me through the environment that was established on my official visit. And then it was just a repetitive thing, all throughout my recruiting process. I was able to just get a deeper feel for what it meant to be a part of the Michigan State family. And they take great pride. They take great pride in that. So the family aspect really drew me. The basketball, the schools that were recruiting me in terms of basketball, I knew that that was going to take care of itself. But that that family piece and the culture that was established there, it just really drew me, man. Because eventually, all the basketball stuff that's going to fade away. So you got to have some foundational ingredients, that can maintain a program and that can establish a program. And I felt like I saw that when I took my official visit.
Yeah, and it feels like that for one, Michigan State has always had the history, no matter if it's football, if it's basketball, even hockey, to this point, it's always been family rooted, family oriented, because Spartan Nation stays together forever. I mean,
Yeah.
I know like guys like Magic who played for Michigan State in the late 70s. He's still very active and involved with the team and coming
Hmm.
back and stuff like that. And especially now with the NIL and the transfer portal now, you don't really see uh when it comes to, familyness, cultures and stuff because guys are hopping all over the place now.
You're right.
But again, Michigan State, again, I think, it's the Izzo effect. He just finds a way. He's been doing it for 30 years. So
Yeah.
what was your first impression of Coach Izzo when you met him and the guys that were on the team at the time, especially the recruiting class, you, Miles Bridges, Cassius Winston, and Nick Ward?
My first impression of Coach. Okay, I probably won't be able to answer what was it like to first meet him, like what was my first impression of him. But I can tell you what has always stood out to me, um, which that probably was a part of. I probably was impressed by this when I first met him, but when I think about Coach is, um, and this kind of connects to the statement that you just said too about the Izzo effect. I think Coach does a really good job of just being very personable. He knows how to just meet you where you're at, but then also in his own unique way. You know, it takes time to get used to this, but he knows how to call you up too. He meets you where you're at. He meets you where you're at, but then he also like calls you higher. Um, when I think about him, I think about like a compassionate leader that meets you where you are at. I'll give you a few stories. So like one time in practice, this is my freshman year in practice. Uh, one of the things that the coaches always got onto me was like my body language. They really tried to coach me up and like, man, like show some passion. Like let like one of the things I tell some of the players here at the school that I'm coaching at is let the lion out. And that's what they were trying to get me to do. Like, let the lion out, let the dog out. And so they always coached me on that. And so one day in practice, there was a situation where um, I think I was justified to show emotion and be frustrated, but I didn't show any emotion. And he was like, you know what? I want you to take this basketball and I want you to throw it to the other side of the court. Just throw it. Um, and at first I was like, what are you talking about? Why do you want me to do that? Like that's really odd. Like, no, I'm not doing that. But I ended up doing it, and what I realized was that he was just trying to get me to express myself, like to really like let it all out and to give everything that I have, um, just in that moment. And I think as a leader, when you're trying to develop leaders, when you're trying to develop men, like it's really important to teach young men the value of expression. And that's what he was teaching me in that moment. And that's what I learned from him all throughout the course of my career, was not just how to be a good basketball player, but how to be a man. I mean, he's not. We all we all fall short. We all have things that we need to develop in. Coach has those things. If he didn't have those things, he would be God, but he's not God, and that's okay. But he did show me, and I did learn from him like how to be a man. Another story. was when I got injured. And man, I just remember being in. I may be getting ahead of myself, but I got injured at at Michigan State, and it was a very devastating injury because during this time I was really, I was really doing well, and so coach was, he was excited for me. It was kind of like almost like a breakthrough season, and I got injured, and man, I remember us finding out that I wouldn't be able to play, and man, he just like he cried as if he got injured, and I was just like, wow, and so can I give you one more story? Or
Go
you need
ahead.
more?
Yes.
Okay. So that's one story. And then another one I remember when we were freshmen. And so when I say we were freshmen, I'm referring to Cassius, Winston, Nick Ward, Miles Bridges, and I. We were freshmen, and that was kind of a challenging year for us. Um, we were trying to get incorporated into the system. And then also we were playing a significant amount of minutes as freshmen in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is not an easy conference to play in. So it was not the best year for us, but we ended up doing pretty good overall, I think. Um, but nevertheless, we had a challenging game, and I can't remember who we played, but it was really hard. And I remember literally that next morning, Coach Is came and got us for an 8 a.m. class. He brought us like some donuts from Quality Dairy, and he took us to class. And um, and we just kind of chatted because it was a hard game the day before. We chatted, and he just spent time with us like that morning. That's small. It wasn't a long time, but he came and picked us up, got us donuts. We chatted, and he dropped us off at class. And so, like when I think about him, I think about a compassionate leader that knows how to meet people where they're at, and then also he knows how to call people up. Um, and so that's what I think about when I think about Coach.